Welcome to Adobe Illustrator Bootcamp. I know that there are people watching who have a wide range of experience using Adobe Illustrator. So I want to talk about some of the essential tools and essential approach to creating graphics in Adobe Illustrator, just to make sure everyone has what I consider to be the essentials. And for those who are more experienced, perhaps the presentation will highlight some best practices and features that you might not be that aware of. Adobe Illustrator is a vector graphics program, which means that everything you create in Adobe Illustrator can be broken down into filled paths defined by anchor points. For instance, I could take the ellipse tool, drag out an ellipse. This tool is great for creating ellipses. It'd be harder to draw it by hand, but if you look at it, what we see is 4 anchor points defining a path. It has a fill and it has a stroke. If I took the direct selection tool, I could select any one of those anchor points, move it, manipulate it, and start creating something different from it. Now we have a tool in Illustrator that is what I consider to be the essential tool. If a vector graphics program had only one tool, it would be the pen tool. And here it is. Now, there are actually 4 tools stacked on top of each other here. So as I click and get the flyout, we see the pen tool, add anchor point tool, delete anchor point tool, and convert anchor point tool. And there are shortcuts for each of these. I'm going to tear this off so that if I don't feel like using the shortcut, I can go back and forth between these pretty easily. Now the pen tool is the only one of these tools that does not have the word anchor point in its name, and it probably should. It'd relieve a certain amount of confusion if this wasn't called the pen tool, because when people say pen tool, they expect to be able to click and drag and draw out a line, but instead you get this. This would be better named the create anchor point tool, because that's what it does. If you click, you get an anchor point. If you click again, you get another anchor point, and the path is stroked if you have a stroke applied to it. If I click again, now I have 2 stroked paths and a fill. If I click and drag, I drag out handles for the anchor point, creating a curved anchor point as opposed to a corner anchor point. If I go back to the beginning and click, it closes that path and takes me out of the mode where I'm adding on to that one, and I can start making another one. Now, just so you know, another way to get out of drawing another one mode is by deselecting. The shortcut is Control-Shift-A, and that will allow me to go and create other lines if that's the mode I'm in. Okay, I'm going to select all these, delete. What I would like to do is show you some things that may help you create smoother, more elegant, more easily editable shapes with the pen tool. I'm going to start just because I have a fill, I'm going to go ahead and create kind of a filled area here. And I'm going to create waves across the top. Now, these are all corner anchor points, and I'm going to be adding on to this. This time I'm going to click and drag to get a curved one. I'm going to just click for a corner, click and drag, click, click and drag, click, click and drag, and close it. All right, so this isn't a bad approach. I've got a bunch of anchor points across the top here that I could do a multiple selection and move them up if I want taller waves, bring them down for lower waves. I could also click and drag and grab all the bottom ones if I wanted to move them. So I have pretty good editability here. This point here, if I grab its finger points, I can control the shape of the trough of this wave. If I grab this point, I can change the position of that crest. This is pretty editable. Now, just to show you, if I was trying to be really economical, I could create this wave pattern with half this number of anchor points. I'm going to go to one of our other anchor point tools, the delete anchor point, and get rid of the trough ones. And if I use my direct selection tool, I could even these out if I wanted to. Now I'm going to switch to the convert anchor point. So with this, I'm going to click and drag to draw out handles. And then I am going to grab this handle after releasing it, grab it again, drag it down. Now I have another type of anchor point, which is a cusp. It's different from a corner in that it does have handles coming out. So click and drag to draw out the handles, release, then grab one of the handles and bring it down. And you can see that I now have a similar wave structure with half the number of anchor points. Now, why is that useful? If you were trying to be very economical in terms of your file size, if you were consistent with this style of drawing, you'd end up with a file that was half the size. It also means that a single anchor point here controls a larger portion of the form. It also means that the curvature between each of these is very smooth and continuous. It's very easy for me to make edits to this and have a very smooth, continuous curve. I can still do this sort of edit, but now I'm moving the whole waveform rather than just the troughs or the crests. Let me give you another example of this. If I drew out an ellipse, this has 4 anchor points. And I could convert this into an eye if I use the Convert Anchor Point tool and just click on one of these. It turns that into a corner. And this is one way to get an almond, eye shape. And I could adjust, the curvature of these. Now I could get the same form again with just 2 anchor points. I'm going to draw this one first before deleting this one. Otherwise it would collapse on me. So with the Convert tool, I'm going to turn this into a cusp, turn this into a cusp. And now I have a shape that I can edit with just 2 anchor points and the handles controlling the curvature between these 2 points. Again, this is half the number of points, maintains a very smooth curve between these. If I want to turn that into an eye, I think I've got a gradient here. There we go. As this is my gradient palette, radial gradient. Just put some different colors in there. I could enhance this a little bit more. If I select the whole thing, I can reduce the stroke size and then use the stroke line width tool just to fatten it up where I want it and the amount I want. Adjust it in a few other ways. A reasonably good eye with just a 2 anchor point shape. It's got some other things added to it, but it's a very basic shape. Similarly, just because I'm having fun now, I'm going to create a heart. Now the heart will not have an eye gradient on it. We'll just make it a red, traditional. Okay, so with the convert tool, drag this up, turn that into a point. There we go. Drag that out, turn this into a cusp, turn this into a cusp, and I have a heart that is very, very editable. And yet I get a very smooth, continuous curve. So, adjust to taste. So what I was trying to motivate here is a very economical approach to creating graphics and an approach to the proper use of the pen tool, contrasting this to the naive approach a lot of people take to Illustrator, where they try to draw with the pen tool. It doesn't act like a brush does, so they perhaps grab the brush and start painting with it, and that makes lines, but if they want a solid area, they start scribbling, trying to fill it in. And of course what they're doing is creating a very complex path that is being stroked. Something that would be better than that, I mean, if you like the gestural approach that you get with the pencil or a brush, if you're trying to create a filled area, you could still use the gestural approach that you get with a pencil or pen, but then just switch it from a stroked line to a filled shape, and you get the same free-form drawing, but you are actually creating a vector graphic in a way that makes sense for Adobe Illustrator.